to Elementary Python for CBSE. Today we are going to discuss on a new topic, that is file handling. In file handling we will study the different concepts of what is a data file, what is the need for a file, what are the different types of file, text file, binary file and CSV file, the basic operations that are performed on a file. Basic operations on a file are opening a file, closing a file, reading and manipulating data in a file, writing to a file, that is to create a file and append or store data in a file. We will see some standard input, output and error streams, and we'll also discuss about how to open file, specifying the absolute and relative paths. What is a file? A file is a container of data, that is, it is a bunch of bytes stored on some secondary storage device like hard disk. Basically, we need files to store information permanently for future use. Whenever we are working, then the data gets temporarily stored in the main memory. From there, we have to give instruction to write it or store it permanently in the secondary storage device in the form of a file. Now, depending upon how the data is stored, whether it is readable or not, it can be divided mainly into two categories: text file and binary file. So let us discuss about text file. A text file stores data in the form of ASCII or Unicode character. That is, it is used for storing textual data. Here, each line is terminated with a special end of line character. That means there is a special translation of the end of line character, which is a combination of the new line character and the carriage return, represented by /n and /r as escape sequences. Since the data is stored as ASCII or Unicode character, it needs internal translation for processing, because we know for processing of data, whether we want to read or write or whatever it may be, internally it processes data in the binary form. So it has to translate the data into binary form, and this translation takes some extra time, so the processing is a bit slower in text file. However, when we open a text file, we can easily read the content in it. That means it is human readable. If we compare binary files with text file, then in binary file the data is stored in the same binary format as it is stored in the memory. This binary file, it is used to store images, videos and large objects or large amount of data. It does not store any special end of line character. As the data is already in binary format, so it does not require any translation. Processing of binary files is faster. However, it is not directly readable as it is in binary format. Both text file and binary file, they have their own merits and demerits. Whereas processing of binary file is faster, text file is slower, but text file can be easily read, whereas binary files cannot be read without performing the operations on them. To perform any operation on a file, it has to be opened for that specific operation. The open function is used for this purpose, and this does not require any file, any module to be imported. So it is a built-in function and it can be used directly. The basic syntax for opening a file is we have to specify the file name and the mode with which we want to open a file with the open function. Whenever we are opening a file for performing any operation, we are actually creating a file object or a file handler, and this file object links file specified by the file name, and it is opened depending upon the specific mode. For example, if we write f equal to open file name as test and then mode as w, this means that f is the file object which is opened or which is linked with the file test, and it is opened for writing. So this opens the test file in write mode. We may ignore mode and we can directly specify file name to open a file in the default read mode. For example, if I am writing f equal to open test, this means to open the file in read mode. This is because the default mode is read mode, and we may not use the mode because mode is optional here. The default file mode is read mode, and unless specified, a file is created as a text file. For opening the file in binary mode, we have to suffix the mode with B. So we'll discuss about different file opening modes. We have to specify the file name while opening a file. Now this file name, it can be specified with a relative path or with absolute path. Now if we are storing the data file in the same folder where the Python script file for accessing the file is stored, then only the file name is sufficient to open it, as it is in the case, for example, we have written f equal to open test. However, if the data file is in some other location than the Python script file, then we have to specify the full path, that is the absolute path. It starts from the topmost level of the directory structure, that is from the disk drive. For example, to open a file, say mod1.py in read mode, we need to specify its full path, which shows that it is in the map package folder of D drive. So here we have to specify full path, but we have to keep in mind that we have to specify the path properly. So this we can shorten by using a raw string. A raw string is a string which has no special meaning to any character in it. So we can directly use the backslash symbol without specifying it as an escape sequence. So the string representing the file name along with the path in this example can be rewritten as file object equal to open, then prefix this file path as raw string. File name as well as the mode, both are specified as strings, and mode is optional here. Closing a file, we know that it's a good practice to close a file after performing any operation on it, that is whether we are reading or writing. After the operation, we should close the file. This can be done using the close method, and close method has to be used with the file object. File object dot close. This closes the file properly, and this is important because closing operation writes or saves any changes that is made to the file on the disk. This close operation breaks the link between the file object and the file. What is a file object or file handle then? Whenever we are opening a file, we are writing that file object equal to open, then the file name, and optional mode. File object is actually created to provide a link to a file stored on the disk. This acts as a reference to a file on the disk. That means whenever we want to refer to the file name, we don't have to specify every time, we don't have to specify the file name, rather we can use the file object for referencing it. This file object or file handle is actually a stream of bytes. Once this link is created with the file through the file object, the file becomes available for performing different operations, that is reading or writing in our program. So we create a file object by opening it. The syntax we have already seen, file object equal to open file name, where this r equal to open sample, r is the file object which references the file sample. Again we have seen that when we close the file, it breaks the link between the file object and the physical file. We can no longer reference the file using the file object. Let us now discuss about the various file opening modes before actually performing any operation on file. As we have already discussed, the default file type is text file, and default file mode is read mode. Various opening modes available in Python are read, which is represented with the letter R, or we have to suffix B to represent it as read binary mode. So whenever we are specifying the file mode as R or RB, it opens the file for reading, that is to get data from the file, to input data from the file. For reading data, file should already exist in the given name, otherwise it will show error. So whenever we are opening a file, we must ensure that the file already exists in the disk, otherwise we will not be able to read data from the file and it will show error. The file pointer is placed at the beginning of the file, so the reading operation starts from the beginning of the file, and the default file mode is read mode. Then The letter W or WB is used for opening the file in write mode or write binary mode. The file is opened for writing, that means we can store data in the file. This will create a file if file does not exist. Whenever we want to create a file and if the file does not exist, we have specified a name, a file in the name does not exist, then it creates a file with the same name. The file pointer is at the beginning of the file, and we have to remember that if the file already exists, as the file pointer is placed at the beginning of the file, it starts writing from the beginning of the file, and if the file already exists, then the data will get overwritten or the data will get lost. So we'll be very careful while writing data to the file, and we should know that the file does not exist. Then append or append binary mode. If you are opening a file in write mode, then every time we want to write some data, it creates a new file overwriting the previous data. To avoid this situation and to write data to some existing file, we should open a file in the append mode. The letter A is used for append and it is suffixed with B, that is AB, to append in binary mode. So whenever we are opening a file in append mode, that means it helps us to write data to the end of a file. This will create a file if the file does not exist. If we are writing to the file for the first time, then it creates a new file. Please note that the file pointer is at the end of the file. It is not at the beginning of the file like in write mode. So we can write data at the end of the file and the data is retained. It is not lost. If file already exists, data will be appended at the end of the file. If file does not exist, it will be created. Then we can also augment the read and write operation to the default read or write mode by using the plus symbol. If we are using R plus or RB plus, then it will open the file for reading as well as writing. The file should already exist, otherwise it will show error. Similarly, if you want to write and then read, so we will suffix this plus symbol to write or write panel, that is W or WB. Similarly, we can use A plus or AB plus to append and read. The two basic file operations are reading and writing. So reading means to get data from the file or input data from the file and bring it to the memory so that we can work with it, as analogous to console input, where we get the data or input the data from the standard input device into the memory. Reading means to get data from a file into the memory, just like from input device to the memory. A program accesses data from the memory. Writing means to store data or output data in a file from the memory, as analogous to console output, which means to display data in the standard output device. From the program, we instruct to display data from the memory to the output device, that is standard output or console output. Similarly, when we are writing data from the memory to the file, this means writing to the data, writing operation. Whatever operations or whatever data flows between the program and the file and the memory, that takes place as a sequence of bytes called a stream. So we'll see how we can perform different operations on text file or binary file, etc. in the next class. That's all. Thank you.